So now that New Year's is over, I'm trying to figure out what I should do because I've been wrong about my impressions. So I got to figure that out. I don't think I'm wrong about future wife just because I felt the prophetic level of visions there. And what's more frustrating than being wrong is the idea that I can't help people. But with all that being said, the only thing that didn't happen is I've been wrong about a lot. I didn't get 98% of what I wanted. Being 45 and really hoping I had to have kids by now sucks. I've seen a lot of videos of like not worrying about it. And I'm not going to fall into depression because people that carry their cross, they carry their spiritual destiny, their calling, their dreams. It's a supernatural muscle that you don't want to quit on. And if I wasn't healing people, I'd probably be really lost about now. A lot of people that I love have been like, hey, you know, you're 45, you've been banking on this thing for so long. A pastor once said that ministry used to be like a really respected calling, and now it's not. He said, you know, it used to be a really powerful calling to be a shepherd, and then it changed. Jesse, King David's father, when the prophet Samuel said, get your kids here, one of them is going to become the new and future king, he brought all of them except for David. Is this all your sons? Yeah. This is all your sons? Yeah. Well, none of them are going to get anointed. God hasn't said any of them. God hasn't said that any of them are going to become the king. So these are your sons? Well, I mean, there's little David tending the sheep. We'll bring him over here. So they bring him over here. Ah, that's him. I think the thing that makes me most miserable about all this is the church has failed me in so many ways, and the only way I'll do ministry work is in ways where it won't fail. Because, like the Bible says, you can't build a foundation on sand. You have to build a foundation on a rock. And I can't feed y'all things that aren't true, that don't work. I know that a lot of you fight with depression and a lot of you want to give up. We're seeing nobody get married anymore, nobody have good long-term relationships anymore. Everyone's just giving up and just trying to burn bright before they die. Nobody's looking forward to the future, nobody's planting, nobody's investing. So I'm trying to be mechanical and smart about this. So I think I know who future wife is. So I'm going to keep praying for her because I've seen how powerful my prayer has become. A good story that I tell people is a friend of a friend had a sister in a mental institution for 2 years. And I said, hey, I'll get her out. She said, how? Like, I'm good at this. And so the sister wanted to become a warlock and work with demons. And then suddenly she's in a mental institution for 2 years. So I start praying 3 times a day about this sister for about 2 months. And then after the 3rd month, she's left, she's fine. And so I told the sister, like, hey, make sure she doesn't go back into that, because if she does, it'll be harder the 2nd time. Yeah, for sure. And this woman was 33 and she was upset. She wasn't married. She didn't think she'd ever get married. And I said, no. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Write down 20 things that you want in your future husband. I'll get you a husband. She goes, how are you gonna do that? I'm like, the same way I got your sister out of the mental institution. I'm just very good at this. Okay. So 2 months go by. She's like, how long do you think it'll take? I'm like, 2 or 3 months. So 2 months go by. Yeah, see, I kind of told you I didn't really feel it. 3 months go by, and I'm feeling, feels like water and air, but not like thick spiritual water that fills the soul, fills the life. And I go, hey, I said write down 20 things. Did you write down 20 things, or did you just think about it? She goes, well, I thought about it, wrote down 5. And I said, well, I told you to write down 20. And you haven't written down 20, and you're upset you haven't gotten what you wanted when I told you to write down 20. Well, I didn't think it was that important. I said, hey, I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset. Write down 20, and then let's see if I fail. Well, I just don't think I'm meant to be married. Well, you know what? Let's try and then fail. Let's see how failing works out. Okay. Text her a couple weeks later. Did you write down 20? I have 20 written down. I think she sent me a screenshot. I said, you can ask for anything you want, but I need 20 things. So I prayed 2 times a day. After 1 month, she met a guy with all 20 attributes. I think they got engaged like 3 months later. And she was just like, thank you. I didn't think this would ever happen. I said, I'm just doing what I saw in the Bible. So I'm going to keep praying over future wife. I'm going to keep praying over my kids. I have a couple theories for what is going wrong, but I want to test them. I guess I can tell you them. When I was 5, 6, so there's a story of David's son named King Solomon. And let me make a new video file. Okay, so there's a story of King Solomon, who's David's son, who prayed for the gift, prayed for the ability to let me check something. Okay, so let's go over what inspired me to become this. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 1. So we're learning about Solomon, who's the son of King David. So Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So that's a pretty big deal. By marrying Pharaoh's daughter, Solomon brought her to the city of David, right? And then we just had Christmas, right? So where did that all take place? The city of David. Until he finished building his palace. Until he finished building his palace, the Lord's temple, and the wall surrounding Jerusalem. So here we see that King David was somebody who was a fighter, right? He killed the lion and the bears that go after the sheep, and then Goliath who went after like the sheep. And now we have Solomon, who's a constructor, but still is mentally thinking about, what could happen. Like building a wall means you're thinking ahead. However, the people were sacrificing on high places because until that time, a temple for the Lord's name had not been built. Solomon loved the Lord. Sorry, whenever I see something I don't know, I like to learn. What does high places mean? Sacrifices, high places. Chapter 3, verse 2. I'll be right back. Okay, so because there's no official temple yet, they'll sacrifice in the hills, probably because it felt like closer to God, and then like local church areas. So Solomon loved the Lord by walking in the statutes of his father David, but he also sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. So I believe walking, let's find the actual answer. Okay, it means you walk in the traditions and also like the moral ways of David. So walking in like the memories and the statutes. Does it say stat? It says statutes, not statues. Oh my God, I missed that. But he also sacrificed and burned incense on high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there because it was the most famous high place. He offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, so that's a big deal. Like Solomon obviously had the money, but that's still a big deal that he's just like, he's expressing his love in a generous way to God. And the things we do emotionally matter. I was reading a Bible verse where someone was like crying to God and asking God, and then God spoke to him and said, I'm here and I've heard your cries. And I said, it's so weird. Like, why is that important? Like, you as the king, from the king's point of view, like, I have heard your cries. It just seems too Greek. It seems too like you're blowing us off and you don't care. Like, you're like, ha ha ha, I've heard your, like, I am the great God. It doesn't feel like you. And God explained it as, it's the other way around. Like, he's crying out to me. He feels this, and I am expressing that I'm reciprocating and feeling his pain, and I understand that he's in pain, and I understand that he's sad, and his feelings matter to me, and his communication matters to me, and all of you matter to me. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. I'm okay with that answer. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God said, ask, what should I give you? And Solomon replied, and this is smart. This is like hero smart. This is anime smart. This is video game smart. This is smart. This is like, dude, you did the right thing. Like, good for you. And Solomon replied, you have shown great and faithful love to your servant, my father David. Right? David was really cool. We're trying to walk in David's footsteps, like be cool like David. Because he walked before you in faithfulness, righteousness, and integrity, you have continued this great and faithful love for him by giving him a son to sit on his throne as it is today. So I like the way he talks like that. I think there's a passage in The Hobbit where Gandalf talks to the eagles, like he knows how to talk to them because the eagles were created by the gods. They're like supernatural beings. They're not just eagles. And they have a very like poetic and kind of proud way, like a good way of speaking that I really appreciated in Tolkien verse. So he's like, oh, God's here. I'm like, hi, God, I love you. You are great and mighty. Because if we're going to worship and be sappy, it's really good to do it with God, who is God, who loved us and made everything. Okay, so he continues. Right, point one made. Ooh, hi, God. good to see you. Like, you be awesome. Now we get to the meat of it. Lord God, you have made your servant king in my father David's place. Yet I am just a youth with no experience in leadership. Smart, is covering his weaknesses. Your servant is among, and he's like, your servant is among your people you have chosen, a people too many to be numbered or counted, which is a proclamation that the people of God, right, the Israelites, the people Moses led out, the people who have like made a relationship with God through several generations, have flourished, right? We flourish so much you can't even count us all. So give your servant a receptive heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? So he's made a statement. Now we get the reciprocation. How does God reflect this? And to know that God reflects upon things is important, because God considered himself and made us in his image, right? That's what humanity is. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? Now it pleased the Lord that Solomon had requested this. So God said to him, because you have requested this and did not ask for long life or riches for yourself or death of your enemies, but you asked discernment for yourself to administer justice. Right? Now God is reviewing, right? So we're on the same page. We're going, this is great. This is what you've just said. This is what I'm operating off of. I will thereby do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has never been anyone like you before and never will be again. Now that's an important phrase. They say that in, I believe it's the book of Joshua, when he asks God to hold the sun in the sky so they can finish this battle without it being prolonged. And so God said, okay, but nothing before and nothing after. So it's saying it's a once in a history moment. In addition, I will give you what you did not ask for. So Solomon could have asked for anything. He could have asked for all these things, but he didn't. Despite maybe he was hungry for it, maybe not, but he was like, this. And this is a good example too of how generational wealth grows. So God has already had favor on the line of David because of how great and authentic David was in the ways of God. And so now that springboards to the next generation. So the outpouring grows. God, in addition to giving Solomon what he asked for, he's going to give Solomon what he didn't ask for. In addition, I will give you what you did not ask for, both riches and honor, so that no king will be your equal during your entire life. If you walk in my ways and keep my statutes and commands, just as your father did, I will give you a long life. So riches, honor, so people are going to know him and know how great he is, and a long life. Then Solomon woke up and realized it had just been a dream. He went to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he held a feast for all of his servants. It's kind of cool. The Lord's covenant, the ark of the Lord's covenant is the thing from Indiana Jones. I think you've seen it in the. Do they have it in the Moses movie? Anyways, so now God is going to demonstrate. God is going to demonstrate Solomon's new metaphysical upgrade. Like Solomon has now been given discernment and judgment. I'm going to make another video file. Okay. So from the next part of the story, it seems like you can petition your problems in front of the king. I don't know how you get there. I don't know what that process is. Maybe the local courts are like, this is too big. Let the king handle it, or maybe it's a certain day. You can have the king look at your problems personally. So here we go. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 16. Then 2 women who were prostitutes, so kind of low on the totem pole, right? Low, like non-righteous women, non-holy women, women who are doing something they shouldn't. Now we understand, like, I believe Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. So God has a heart for everyone, especially because he hung out with sinners, right? Jesus hung out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes. And when all the hoity-toity nobles got upset, oh, why are you hanging out with them? And he says, because sick people need a doctor, healthy people don't. Okay, well, that's a good answer. Okay, so 2 women who were prostitutes came to the king, Solomon, and stood before him. One woman said, "Please, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was in the house. On the 3rd day after I gave birth, she also had a baby, and we were alone." So there were no witnesses. No one else was there with us in the house, just the 2 of us were there. No witnesses. During the night, this woman's son died because she laid on him. So the baby was laying on the bed next to her, right? And the mom rolled over, and the baby suffocated and died. She got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your servant was asleep. And so here she's claiming, even though I'm a prostitute, I am a dutiful servant of the king. And that's important because we have a similar moment where Jesus does this later. A woman brings her son to be healed, and he goes, this food is for the people, because she's obviously not somebody who is spiritually following Jesus. Like, she's probably on the fence, because he wouldn't say that to someone who wasn't Jewish, but still loved him, right? We see that Jesus loves everyone. So that means she's on the fence. And she says, "Master, even the dogs get the scraps from their master's table." Even the dogs get food from their master. So she's saying, nope, you're right. I'm on Team Jesus. I believe. If that's you, that is you. I'm being stubborn. Please heal. If you are God, please heal my son, and I am forever yours, because this demonstrates that you are God. And then her child is healed. So we have the same thing here. So the woman's saying, I am your servant. Like, there's nowhere else for me to turn. I am faithfully yours. Like, I'm not living the life I should, but my heart is towards what it should be. She got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your servant was asleep. She laid him in my arms, and she put her dead son. She laid him in her arms, and she put her dead son in my arms. So she traded. At that time period, the greatest wealth was children. I know we've definitely gotten away from that, but the greatest wealth was children. I think it says in Proverbs, I just read it like 2 days ago, that like a crown of grandparents is their grandchildren. So she put her dead son in my arm. When I got up in the morning to nurse my son, I discovered he was dead. That morning, when I looked closely at him, so a woman with an attentive heart, I realized that he was not the son I gave birth to. And then, no, the other woman said, my son is the living one. Your son is the dead one. And this is kind of interesting because you'll see this on cop stories. The person telling the truth usually has all the details, and then the other person goes, nuh-uh. And that's kind of what we have here, but this is a court, not a drama show. The first woman said, no. Wait. The first woman said, no, your son is the dead one, my son is the living one. So they start bickering before the king. Not what you should be doing, but she's hurt because she wants her baby, and he's being kidnapped. This is where the story gets interesting. The king replied, this woman says, so he's going to recap, right? This woman says, this is my son who is alive, and your son is dead. But that woman says, no, your son is dead, and my son is alive. The king continued, bring me a sword. So they brought the sword to the king. And the king said, so it's probably not they like handed it. It's probably like the swordsman came up and like showed him his sword. Cut the living boy in two and give half to one and half to the other. So what do you do when there's no evidence, right? You can't just make a judgment based on nothing. You create evidence. So we're seeing Solomon's gift of judgment and discernment. So he's getting an impression supernaturally of what is right and wrong, and how to have good judgment by exposing an opportunity for good judgment and then enacting upon that opportunity that he created out of thin air. Bring me a sword. So they brought the sword to the king, and the king said, cut the living boy in two and give half to one and half to the other. And so this is what really sparked my mind, because I thought, wow, this is really evil coming from King Solomon. Like, this is like an evil thing to kill and murder a baby. Like, how awful is that? So let's continue. The woman whose son was alive spoke to the king because she felt great compassion for her son. Right, so she loved her son. My lord, give her the living baby, she said, but please don't have him killed. But the other one said, he will not be mine or yours. Cut him in two. Right? So we see the like evil hag that isn't taking life seriously, that wasn't being precautious with how she slept with her baby next to her. And this was King Solomon making a good judgment with no evidence, no facts other than just one person versus the other. He created an environment to expose who they really were. The king responded, give the living baby to the first woman and don't kill him. She is his mother. The king responded, give the living baby to the first woman and don't kill him. She is his mother. He made the decree. He has spoken. This is how it's going to be because he is the king. All Israel heard about the judgment the king had given, and they stood in awe of the king because they saw that God's wisdom was in him to carry out justice. So this is what motivated me to really get into ministry. To at least like really pay attention to the Bible, because how could something so evil be righteous? And so that night I got on my knees and I said, I meant to say make me like King Solomon. I said make me like King David. So I feel like God's doing like a little bit of humor where like some of my spiritual calling is more like David. I have kind of an instinct for it to like be anti-corruption. And then a lot of me is very much like King Solomon. I like wisdom and I like discernment. And so let me start another video. I hate it when it says like, you've used all your data or all your storage space. Anyways. So this is what happened. This is a true story. I'm like 6 and I got on my knees and I prayed. I said, dear God, please make me like, I meant to say King Solomon, but I said King David. And then I went to bed. And then that night I had a dream where my mom was by this bookshelf in our hallway, and there was these jets flying by our house dropping bombs, and my dream was in black and white, which was very weird. I always thought maybe it was like Superman, like X-ray vision, or watching like a film, like an old film. And so I'm listening to the train, like trains. So in my dream, I see that, and then I get up out of bed and I scurry on over to where my mom is, and I open my bedroom door, and my mom is kneeling by this bookshelf putting a book away, and I tell her my dream, and she gets very, very sad, and it like knocks me out. Like it like goes it goes like this way, and it like knocks me out. And I wake up and I go, whoa! And so I get up and I get out of bed. So now I'm awake, and I scurry over and I open my door, and my mom is kneeling just like she was in my dream. And I tell her my dream, and she goes like, Andy, like named my dad. And I look in her eyes, and I see just this massive amount of like depths of despair and sadness and depression. And it just like knocks me out because I soak up all of it. I'm just like, wow. Because my parents had this theory that like they were under a lot of spiritual attack, and they were trying to figure out why. My theory is why all the spiritual attacks started is the version of me now, right, after going through all that and successfully getting the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit and starting a ministry, is I can now give out the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit, and I've given them out to quite a few members of my family, which meant we all had to go through our prophetic cave days training, right? So all the prophets, Jesus was kind of held back from doing his ministry until his mom released him. David had to hide in the caves because the king was trying to kill him. So he learned the word for wisdom is chokmah or hakmah, however they say it. And it means like craftsmanship for life. It's considered like the abilities of a master craftsman, but for like spirituality and life and prosperity in the future. So all these prophetic people had to learn how to become wise, and then that wisdom makes us great leaders, and then we learn to socialize, and then from there we go forward. So anyways, Joseph was stuck in the prison. He learned to run the prisons, and then he ran Egypt. Elijah was stuck practicing his gifts, just having to chill in the mountains. Moses had to learn education and power. So I think the reason there was spiritual attacks on my household is because immediately all 5 of my family members, were kind of psychologically separated from each other to grow spiritually, to grow in wisdoms. So I have a couple theories. Maybe when I prayed for what King Solomon had, I wasn't given the gift of discernment. I was given a discerning mind and great wisdom. I told the pastor it felt like I had great wisdom and faith, so maybe I have wisdom and faith. Maybe I have faith, wisdom, and discerning, or maybe I just know too much supernaturally for it just to be wisdom. So I have a lot to figure out. Is maybe I have discerning ment, but I didn't grow up with the gift of discernment like I thought. Maybe Yeah. Anyways, so a lot of my dreams come true. We've seen that because I log them all and then I can see them come true. So the fact that a lot of it comes true, but then like the parts with future wife don't, is something that I need to take to heaven, because I can't give you guys crap information. I have to give you guys authentic information that helps facilitate your wealth and your structure and your building towards heaven and your relationship with God. And if I can't do that, I have to figure out why. So I apologize that I'm not 100% ready to go. But the good news is you get to see what this journey is like. So if any of y'all decide to enter ministry, you can see the failures and good ways to handle failures. Because a lot of people will say like, oh, give up, da-da-da. And I'm like, no, I've healed people. Well, they've said that you've healed people. No, I have some people who are like diabetic, who test their blood every day, and then suddenly they're not diabetic. Diabetes doesn't just vanish. High blood pressure doesn't just vanish. Pain doesn't just vanish. Like, people don't attack hug you from a placebo effect. They don't start weeping into your chest from a placebo effect. They don't dance for joy from a placebo effect. They don't go and find their friends and drag their friends over to you for a placebo effect. Like, that happened once. I healed my boss's back. And then all of a sudden she's pulling this girl over to me like, hey, can you, oh no, she's like, hey, can you come over here and pray for this girl? And I was like, hey, I do this thing. I'm not trying to preach you, just want to help. If you believe in Jesus, even better. She's like, okay, so what's wrong? Headaches, insomnia, bad cramps, knee pain, back pain, muscle pain. And I was like, prayed for her for like 2 minutes, gone. One girl, it's her birthday. I had this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. I prayed, gone. She's like, whoa. And then one time there was a girl who had metal rods in her arm, so she couldn't bend. She had surgery. There was like a bad car accident, and I was so tired I wasn't thinking clearly, and I grabbed her wrists and I said, oh, you've been to church, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, let me pray for you real quick. And I grabbed her wrist, and she started screaming, let me go, let me go. And it wasn't like she was pulling back and like mad, right? She was just like, what are you doing, asshole? It was so, because if she had like pulled back in terror, I would have let her go. But she was just like, what, you asshole, like, let me go. Like, you jerk. And I was like, shut up. I started praying. And I was like, okay, can you move your wrist now? And she was like, no, I've got rods in. And she like goes, what the hell? I'm like, can you move them all the way? She's like, no, not. And I grabbed him again. She's like, stop grabbing me. And I'm like, no, shut up. And I started praying. I'm like, can you move them more? And she's like, what is going on? And I'm like, oh, okay, but not all the way. And I grabbed her again. She's like, dude, stop putting your hands on me. And I prayed and prayed. And then she's like, what? And I was like, any other problems? She's like, yeah, I have a compressed spine. And so I prayed and prayed, and her back decompressed. And she went from like this bitterness, because like pain is leaving. And I learned that when you heal like people, like older people, they stop getting cranky because all the pain's gone. And so the pain was gone. She's like, she became like a whole new person, full of joy and life and love. And I was like, whoa, like I could see like light generating in her chest. I was like, oh, okay. I love you guys. This is where my head's at. This is what I'm doing. Happy New Year. It's been a great run. I really wish I knew more. I guess we'll find out together. I'm going to keep praying for future wife, praying for my kids, praying for my family, and praying for this Christmas project to bring Jesus back. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.